Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to thank you all for coming to the Southern Main Street to Harpswell Road Safety Improvements Forum. I'm Jamie Ecker, the District 2 Counselor. I'm going to be facilitating tonight. We're going to do some introductions in a moment, but first I'd like to say how glad I am to see so many people here tonight. I think it's a clear indication of how important this corridor is to our network. And it obviously needs some improvements. I think we've gotten strong indications from that on a lot of levels. I've lived here greater than almost 3 decades now, not quite. But I don't think much has changed on those roads except for some minor improvements over that time frame. So we're going to start with a presentation from one of the staff. But the meeting tonight is intended to be very informal. This is not a town council meeting, so we're going to allow for some back and forth. We do ask that people come to the podium if they can and state their name. And if you don't want to come to the podium, we have the option of a microphone that will float around. So people can sit in the comfort of their chair. Fast. Yeah. I am going to do my best to try to make this meeting end in the allotted time by 8 o'clock. And if any of you fear that this is your last chance to comment on this, it will not be. I think you'll find out that some of the scheduled improvements are a ways out, some of the more major ones. So I think there'll be plenty of time for other public input. The last thing I'd say is when you do get a chance to comment or speak, that you just be thoughtful of other people. We won't have a timer, but we want everyone who's here who wants to have a chance to be heard to be able to speak, and for staff to be able to respond to comments. And with that, I think we'll start with some introductions, and we'll go around, and if the people who are up at the dais here could just, also give their role in the town, a little more of an introduction than just their name, that would be good. So we'll start to the left here.
Corey Isles, Police Department.
I'm Troy Cruz, I'm the town engineer.
Jay Astle, Assistant Town Manager and former Public Works Director.
Kathy Wilson, at-large counselor and on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee and ride bikes.
Kim Anderson, District 3 Counselor.
Chrissy Adamo is Economic and Community Development Project Manager.
Good evening. My name is Dakota Hewlett. I work for the Maine Department of Transportation. I'm the state's Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator, invited here this evening by the city staff to come sit and provide some input and hear some input from all of you.
Town staff, yep. And we do have a couple other counselors in the audience. Maybe they could just raise their hands. At least 2. Okay.
Sandy and Steve.
Yep. All right, great. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jay Astle, who has a brief presentation. I'm told about 20 minutes or so. And you're on.
Thank you, Jamie. Larry, I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, there's a little bit of a lag. Welcome, good evening. As Jamie said, we're going to do this pretty informally. I'm going to run through just a quick presentation or review of the Main Street from Bath Road to Mirror Point Road to Middle Bay Road to Harpswell Road corridor. Can everybody say that fast? Main Street, Mirror Point, Middle Bay. So I'm just going to go through, like I said, really quick. If you can hold your questions till the end, I promise I won't be long. Just in the interest of flow, let's just move through this. The primary goal of this is to hear from the public about questions that they might have, comments, issues. We've got a number of people up here that all have their specialties and can answer specific questions to the best of our abilities. Yeah, we'll, like I said, be real informal. So again, Main Street, Mayor Point, Middle Bay. We've got it outlined here. It's an increasingly well-used corridor for a number of users, vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians. That's why we're here. I know that there's been dialogue in the past for a number of years about safety issues along this corridor, so we're just going to kind of go through what we're doing right now, what the town is doing right now in terms of projects, what we're looking into or what we've thought about, and again, would love to hear from you at the end. So existing conditions out there, I've just put together this real quick table. Again, this is all like high-level view. On any one of these slides, on any one of these topics, we could probably spend days talking about. That's not what I want to do. Just want to do that quick flyover to kind of set the stage or give some context for everybody. And we now have the youngest member in the group. Welcome. I think it's the youngest member, actually. I'm not quite sure. So speed limits, Main Street from Bath Road out to just past Botany Place, it's 25 miles per hour. It switches to 35 miles per hour. As soon as you get to Mere Point Road at McCoy, it switches to 30 miles an hour. And then Middle Bay, of course, is 35 from its entirety from Mere Point Road over to Harpswell Road. We have done speed studies out there in the past. Haven't done one for Main Street, or at least not one that I could find. For Mere Point Road, the state, actually no, we had done one on Mere Point Road. In 2020, the 85th percentile speed was 40 miles per hour, and that's, again, 30 mile an hour zone. And just to explain the importance of the 85th percentile. That's the speed at which 85% of the people are traveling. It's usually an indication of how comfortable they are with the road geometry, the surroundings. That's their sweet spot. I won't go into much detail about that. Dakota probably can fill in some gaps on that if there are additional questions at the end, but I'll wait till that point. The 85th percentile speed for Middle Bay Road in 2021 was 40 miles an hour. We just did one, just concluded, I think, this week, today, as recently as today, where the 85th percentile speed was 41 miles per hour. Again, speed limit there on Middle Bay was 35. Pavement conditions, this is important because it drives a lot of what we do in terms of maintenance on roads. Main Street is poor to average. It differs depending on what stretch of the road you're on. I'm sure everybody here spends plenty of time driving that section of Main Street. There's some really bad areas. Mere Point Road had got... It's all right, Carol. We won't point you out.
Can you move this stuff to the top so we can see?
Can you move the closed caption?
Thank you, Larry. Mere Point Road is an average to good condition that last got paved in, I'm looking at the former Public Works Director. Where's John Foster out here? Yeah, there. Hey, John. I believe it was paved in 17 or 18. So that's in pretty good condition. And then Middle Bay Road is in poor to average condition. Lane widths, that's travel lane width for Main Street, varies between 12 feet wide and 14 feet wide. Our standard is 11 feet, so those are really wide travel lanes. I'm sure everybody feels it when they're driving on Main Street on that section. Feels like your car is kind of floating on a sea of pavement. Mirror Point Road, 11-foot travel lanes, and then Middle Bay Road is, I put kind of questionable 11-foot lanes. It depends on where you are in Middle Bay Road. Sometimes it's 11, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's lower. It's fallen apart in some places. The paved shoulder on those roads for Main Street, again, just kind of talked about that sea of pavement, varies from 2 feet to 4 feet on both sides of the road. Mirror Point Road varies between 2 and 3 feet shoulders on either side. And then Middle Bay, where it's not breaking apart, is maybe up to about one foot of pavement width on either side, but that's not very often. Stormwater systems on these roads, an important consideration when we're looking at road improvements of any type. On Main Street, it's a closed system, catch basins, piping, conveys water from the roadway and conveys it elsewhere. On Mirror Point Road and Middle Bay, those are open systems. That's ditching or sheet flow runoff from the road to the side of the road. Middle Bay in particular has got ditches on most of it, not all of it, some of it's at grade. Bicycle lanes, yes, on Main Street there are. It's not entirely throughout this section from Bath Road out to Mirror Point Road, but there's definitely width there to do it. I'm sure that will come up in questions and comments. Mirror Point Road, no. Middle Bay Road, no. I'm sure that will come up in comments as well. Sidewalks, yes, on Main Street, no on Mirror Point Road, and no on Middle Bay. And then crosswalks, I guess it just is sort of indicative of, we know where pedestrians are. Most of them are on Main Street. The balance of those 10 crosswalks, it's from Bath Road to Richards Drive, and then there's none beyond that. Oops, sorry, there is one at Mirror Point, right at Mirror Point, McCoy, and Main Street. And that's for the high school down on McCoy. The next two slides I thought are kind of interesting. It's maybe what we already feel in terms of traffic volume increases over the last several years. This one just kind of shows for Mirror Point Road, this is DOT data. We do have some town data, but I just wanted to be able to be consistent with what I was showing. So this is DOT data from 2010, and then 2019, and then 2022. The traffic count data was taken on Mirror Point Road just south of the McCoy Road split, so just to kind of set the stage of where it was taken. You can see the growth, right? Everybody, I think, feels it over the last 10 or 15 years of, it just feels like there's more cars out there. Well, it's because there's more cars out there. That's an important consideration, obviously, in what we do with the roads, but also in terms of bicycle safety. Then on Middle Bay Road, same thing. Definitely a change when Mira opened up the back entrance to Brunswick Landing. Certainly a lot more traffic from East Brunswick, cutting through Brunswick Landing, coming out American Egg Road, crossing over to Middle Bay Road, and getting onto the west side of town. Sometimes that's, although distance-wise might be a little bit longer, but often it's the path of least resistance because nobody wants to go through Cook's Corner, right? I'm sure we've all done it, right? So I just want to talk quickly about jurisdiction. We talked a second ago about speed limits. That's completely Maine DOT jurisdiction. Many of you probably know that. I just want to underscore the importance of that. It is not the town that sets the speed limits anywhere. There's a process that occurs if the town wants the speed limit to be changed or wants DOT to review a speed limit, to see whether it's appropriate. But just know that is 100% 100% a DOT responsibility, is not the town's. What we're responsible for on our roads is maintenance and repair. We'll say that one of these sections of road, the Main Street section from Bath Road to Mere Point Road, is what's referred to as a state aid road. That's important for us in terms of funding. It makes us eligible for municipal partnership initiative money from the state. We use that every year on projects, and that's an important funding source for us to help defray the cost of repair and maintenance. So as I move off from existing conditions, I just want to kind of throw out there that safety is always our first priority, right? That's why we do it, why we make improvements. When we're looking at improvements, that's what we have foremost in mind. But I also just want to kind of throw all the other things out there. It's never just as simple as, go pave a road, right? It's just never that simple. Go put a crosswalk out. No, it's just not that simple. This isn't even the complete list of things that we use as filters or considerations when we're looking at a project. Again, they're very diverse things. I mentioned stormwater drainage. That's an important one. We have a complete streets policy. What do we have for funding? What's engineering and design look like? What's the time frame for that? What's the time frame for all of this? Everything takes time. Utilities is a big thing, and we often joke about it, although some people probably don't think it's funny, the municipal pace of things. It feels like, right, things don't get done. It's not because we don't want to. It's not because we're not working on it. It's just there's so many hoops to jump through. Other departments, both within the municipal government as well as at the state, that we talk to, can get ideas from, see what else is going on in terms of other projects, whether water districts doing things, sewer, other utilities that are happening that we try to piggyback on or that might impact what we do, how we do it, when we do it. One great example of that, maybe not a great example, frustrating example is the Main Street sidewalk project. The length, the duration of that project will impact, for instance, paving of Main Street, right? So we can't pave Main Street until we're done with the sidewalk project because there'd be impacts in the road. So just an example of how there's always something that is, that impacts whatever it is we're trying to do, and a lot of times it's just aligning the timing of various projects, and even to us it does feel like sometimes it's just really hard to kind of continue to move forward. So just kind of wanted to acknowledge that. So what we have coming up, again, just kind of brief cursory overview. A lot of this has been talked about at various points through our budget process, for instance, over the past couple of months, but just want to review it here. So we do have some upcoming paving projects as it relates to this corridor. For Main Street, that Bath Road to Mere Point Road, we'll do a mill and fill. There's some drainage improvements, and we'll have an opportunity to update pavement markings, so line striping, lane width, bike lanes. We'll take a look at all of that. This is an example of the MPI program that I just talked about, where the state kicks in some money toward the project. Right now, we're looking at 2026. So just to give you a sense of that. And then Middle Bay Road, right now it resides in our paving plan for our reserve funding for paving. We're likely to kick that out of that reserve schedule and instead create a capital improvement program project with it, because the scope of it is very likely have changed. It was just going to be a paving, and that's why it resides in that reserve schedule right now. We're looking at, or will look at, widening it. and the impacts of that are significant in terms of the existing ditch lines on both sides, utilities. Anyway, so we'll look at all that. I don't know if we've actually signed the contract yet, but we'll engage with an engineering firm to do the survey work out there, just so we know what our right-of-way extents are and the topography is, so that we can do a full-fledged engineering and design of the road. Timeline of that is, I've got it as kind of question marks. It'll take longer than, I don't think we can do it in 2026, probably likely 2027, but I didn't want to commit to a date here. There's still too much work to be able to work through just to figure out an appropriate timing of that. However, prior to that, and knowing that we're probably at least 2 years out from doing the full reclaim of that road and widening, we are going to do a shim and overlay on the road just because it's in such bad condition. I know there's probably concern that will speed up traffic on the road. It's if it's a smoother driving experience, we will likely mark that as narrower travel lanes to help slow down traffic. I think ultimately it's not safe out there now, I know, for bicyclists or pedestrians. I think if we didn't do anything, the pavement on the sides of the roads is just going to continue to deteriorate. That's not great for cyclists, pushes them out into the lane of travel. So the thought would be to do that shim and overlay this year. We're likely to reclaim the road, so that money that we've invested in the pavement on top will get ground up and create a new base for the road. So there's at least some value that we get in the short term, just in terms of holding the road together, but also we don't lose all that material like you would do on a full reconstruction. So also just gives us a little bit of insurance in terms of the timing of doing what we think we really want to do out there, which is reclaim and widen the road. So sidewalks, I think we just actually finished today the Noble Street to Potter. We just pulled up the bricks that were there. It was in really poor condition. Like a lot of the concrete paver sidewalks that we have, bits and pieces have fallen out, and it's was an unsafe pedestrian experience, and so we did take an opportunity while we were shifting some things around down on Main Street for the streetscape. We were able to send the contractor up to quickly take care of that. Like I said, I think they were just loaming the sides of it earlier today, so we did do that. And then next year, so 2026, we are planning to create a little short stretch of sidewalk. I think it's just shy of 200 feet on the west side of Main Street, south of Botany Place, with the intent, and you'll see this on the next slide, with the intent of putting a crosswalk to align with Meadowbrook. That's just in recognition. There's I know it's a route for school kids to take to get over to the junior high and then over to HBS. Everybody coming out of Meadowbrook often crosses over there and goes through Botany Place and over to just to get over to the school. So we will do that. So yeah, that's where the crosswalk will be. Other than that, there's not any other sidewalks or crosswalks that are imminent on any of these corridors or through the rest of this corridor. I think I'm just at the end here. So improvements that are under consideration, things that we've talked about internally and even externally over the last, I would say, couple of years, is just reconciling that speed limit inconsistency, I would say, on Main Street, where it's 25 and then all of a sudden it bumps up to 35, but then drops down to 30 when you get to Mere Point. I think we'll have a conversation with DOT and just see if that's still a valid speed limit on there. I know on its surface it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. We'll also look at the speed limit review on Middle Bay Road. I think that speed study that we just did might not lend much to lowering that. We might need to do some other things to kind of try to traffic calm on Middle Bay Road if that still continues to be an issue. We'll look at when we're doing that MPI project, the paving of Main Street from Bath Road out to Mirror Point Road. We'll look at that. One of the things we'll look at, in addition to the long laundry list of things, is that Pleasant Hill Road intersection at Main Street. I know it's certainly coming northbound, and you've got traffic trying to turn left onto Pleasant Hill Road. I've witnessed it, of people not knowing should they kind of bump out around and try to go past the person that's trying to take a left-hand turn while they wait for oncoming traffic. Sometimes that's a long wait because there's a long line of cars that are coming down on Main Street. So that is an intersection that we'll look at, just see if there's something that we can do different there in terms of width of paving, street markings, just want to call that out and say that'll be on the radar. Bike lanes on Main Street, again, just talked about the expansive width of pavement through much of Main Street, basically Richards Drive through pretty much all the way till you get to where it turns into Mirror Point Road. Fairly certain that we can, even right now before we do the paving in 2026, fairly certain that we can narrow the travel lanes right now with paint to essentially narrow up the travel lanes, but also create a more dedicated and obvious bike lanes on both sides of the road. So I mentioned widening Middle Bay Road. We're just starting the process of that in terms of getting the survey. And then generally speaking, just striping narrower lane widths as we pave both of these roads, meaning Main Street and Middle Bay Road. We'll also take a look at Mirror Point Road as well, in terms of trying to get rid of the existing pavement markings, the fog lines, and narrowing that up if that's possible. We'll look at that as well. And mercifully, I'm done. Thank you for being so patient as I blew through this. I'm sure there's you probably came in with a lot of questions. I might have sparked additional questions or a need for clarification. So I don't know, Jamie, how you want to handle it.
Yeah.
People just want to queue up and come to the podium if that's easiest, or if we want to, I just saw the microphone somewhere around here.
So that was good, Jay. It was 22 and a half minutes, so just about 10% over, not bad.
I'm happy that I didn't get the 5-minute warning from
No,
you.
you didn't
so.
get the hook.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what's that? Yeah. So Councillor Wilson has a microphone if you don't feel comfortable coming to the podium.
Just wave at me and I'll-
Yeah, otherwise, it's great if you come to the podium. In either case, if you could state your name and then provide your comment or question. If it isn't clear who the question is to, then I'll help direct traffic, who I think might be most appropriate to answer it. So I see we got one person already queued up.
Hang on, Carol, let me interrupt you 1 second. There is a sign-up sheet over on the little table next to the water cooler, and Mark Battle, he's looking at it right now. If you wouldn't mind, on your way out or at your earliest opportunity, just, yeah, that's it. Just, if you can, just so we can take note of who's here tonight. That's helpful for us. Thanks.
That's good. Thank you, Jay. All right.
All right.
You're
Carol
on.
O'Donnell, 305 Main Street. So this is wonderful. Jay, thank you very much for the presentation. It's very helpful. Living on Main Street, I'm very aware that I know you didn't have a number for the 85% of the speed for Main Street, and I can tell you that going by my house, I'd be very surprised at many people going 25 miles an hour, and I know there's a detector or whatever you want to call it out there near Warming's Market now, which is helpful. If there's a way to put in anything to slow the traffic down, that would be helpful. And Main Street really does need a lot of work, as many of us who travel along that road know that we've had a lot of potholes that have pushed people into the middle of the road, and so you're coming either direction, you're fighting to not run into somebody, either on a bike or in a car coming toward you because of all the potholes. While we have Maine DOT here, I have an observation, and I don't know if this is your jurisdiction or not, but the traffic light at McKean Street, the intersection of McKean Street, and the crosswalk light for people to cross McKean Street, the Main Street left turn onto McKean comes on when the pedestrian light for allowing people to cross there is also on. And that is a real safety hazard. I've seen many times, and in fact, I've had to just, whoa, wait a minute, somebody's crossing, I can't turn yet. And there have been several, I've observed several close calls there. So if there's anything that can be done to coordinate that better, it would be a real safety improvement. My last comment is there are sidewalks from McKean Street down past Warming's Market, closer to where I am, that are in really bad shape. And if there's any chance to improve those sidewalks at some point in time, it would be very helpful. There are real tripping hazards through there. So thank you very much for the time. Thank you for all the work you're doing on this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll just make a quick comment about the signal at Main Street and McKean. Maine DOT's reconstructing that signal this summer, so it's being upgraded with new cabinet, new controllers, et cetera, so it's being worked on this summer.
Blaine Moore from Dion Circle, and I just appreciate the thought and work that's going into it, and just want to encourage anything we can do to improve cyclist and pedestrian access on the roads, specifically on Middle Bay Road. Hopefully, if you do restripe it and make it a little narrower, it'll slow traffic down, and it would be able to get DOT to lower the speed a little bit. And I'd also like to see easier access from the southern end of the Greater Commons over towards the Pennellville area, because there is the fields there, there's trails over there, so it is a common place for people to be riding through or trying to run through, and it would be nice to have easier access between there without having to worry as much about the traffic that speeds through in that area. And it would also, if there was any space for it, if there was a way for parking near that entrance, I don't expect there would be, but if that's something that could be considered, it would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Gross. I live at 53 Mere Point Road. We actually just moved there in the fall of 2022. I guess some of the things that I observed being right on the other side of the McCoy intersection are that what is it? I get to watch the school get out every day, which is pretty entertaining. But most of all, like, I guess once a day I will see a car coming from Main Street and a car coming off of McCoy Road will turn to head down Main Street, turn left, and they'll cut off the cars coming down Main Street. That happens probably once a day. The car will have to come to a complete stop. I've only seen one accident so far, but I guess that's what I'm observing. What I think would be a good idea with that intersection to do is turn it into a roundabout, because it's a massive intersection and there's lots of room there, and that would solve the other problem of when the school buses are going through there. Often somebody coming from Mere Point Road going towards Main Street will stop and let all the school buses go through, and then with a roundabout they just have the right of way. And I think that would be a great thing to consider. I'd like that to be on your radar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ralph Keys. I live on the old Pennellville Road, the dirt road, and I want to speak about a couple things. First of all, the dirt road is always problematic for the town because it gets potholed very easily, and part of that is the way cars wind off of Middle Bay Road. You know, they're turning left onto Middle Bay off Mere Point, and they get up enough speed so when they turn onto Old Pennellville, they hammer the dirt and create that first pothole, which turns into a corduroy situation halfway down the road. So if there's some way to slow that down, and I think the whole Middle Bay issue is problematic, and more so now because there's a pretty pronounced demographic shift in the neighborhood where there are a lot of new families with young children, and that would be a terrifying place to be a kid without any sidewalks and cars going through at 45 miles an hour. I think a model for what we could do before we widen it, if that's ever a possibility, is what they did over in Topsom when the road, I guess it's Winter Street, you get to the top of the hill and you head out toward the back entry into the Topsom Fair Mall. There are speed tables all along that road in 25 or 20 mile an hour limits. Would that be a challenge engineering-wise to put a couple of those in just to calm everybody down as they go crazily down Middle Bay? I sometimes walk the loop from my house out to Pennellville, over to Middle Bay, back to Old Pennellville, and most people are very kind to shift over into the oncoming lane if they can, but I'd be very frightened to be a parent of a young child on that road. So perhaps enforcement's the issue. There's a couple places where police officers could pull out and just remind drivers that we're watching, but it is more and more of a problem. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, I'm Jane Hagness, 91 Mere Point Road. When I take my dogs for a walk, I leave my house and turn left and go down to Hemlock to walk in that subdivision, as it feels safer than staying on Mere Point Road. And we live in the curve that people coming from the point into town, they are coming at such an excessive speed that they are crossing off of the road. They have hit our fence. People have hit it twice. I end up walking through my neighbor's yard and through their neighbor's yard to get to Hemlock because I'm so scared of getting hit with my dogs. So I guess my first question would be, I understand that speed limits are not within the town's jurisdiction, but what are the things that are in place that we can do to lower the speed there? I know that we have requested multiple times from the police department for things to be done about it, and oftentimes a speed monitor goes up across the street from our house, but most often that's pointing the direction of people coming from town going out to the end of Mere Point. And the fact is that people coming from Mere Point into town are just flying down that road. So And often when I'm walking, I ask people to slow down, and more often than not, people speed up with aggression. So I guess my question is, what can we as the town do to move this speed limit question forward? And then my next question would be, what law enforcement things can be happening, because people are speeding on that road so severely that I gotta believe that, like, people could be stopped, but maybe we just don't have the resources to make that happen. So number one, it's a property, number one, it's I don't want to die and I don't want my dogs to die. Number two, we're getting a little weary of replacing our fence. So thank you, though, for this time and for your work that you're doing on this.
Thank you, Jane.
Can I just say something? And maybe Sergeant Isles can speak to just how you guys do enforcement. My sense is that it's complaint driven. That's how you go address areas. But maybe you can just touch on that. And then after, maybe Dakota or Trey can talk about just in generally traffic calming devices, like, you know, what's out there. Not saying that any of them are what we would or would not do. Although I will say I did have a slide that talked about roundabouts and speed humps, and I took it out because I didn't want to kind of convey that that's what we're going to do. But maybe you can talk about that after. But I'll let Sergeant Isles go first.
Sure. So yeah, there's a lot of it is complaint based. We have our heaviest shift on day shift is 4 officers, supervisor and 3 patrolmen. So it can be complaint based. As far as the speed trailer goes, I know that the placement is subject to whether or not it's going to encroach on somebody's property. I'm not saying that they can't put it for inbound traffic to see. It's something I can suggest and they can look into. But yeah, it is very complaint based, and it is a resource issue sometimes. But it's something that I can pass along to that shift as well.
I can speak on a few calming treatments. Roundabouts, they are great in a lot of ways and a lot of applications. Usually the issue is always the available right-of-way space, how much land that town actually owns, and sometimes that does require a very lengthy right-of-way acquisition process. So it's always something that's in consideration, but they are very hard to actually accomplish. And then things like speed tables and similar. As far as engineering, it is a very simple design, but it has great impacts on public works, their snow removal operations. It has impacts on emergency response services. So whenever we discuss speed tables or similar, we always have to heavily weigh the impacts on those different departments. And then there are the other typical issues with you need them pretty heavily spaced, otherwise people are just going to speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. There's often a lot of complaints about the noise, especially if you're the house right in front of the hump, where you'll just hear bump, 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 bump all day, especially if it's a very busy road. So we try to be very careful about where we place them and give great consideration, especially to the neighborhood and the people most impacted by those. I don't know if Dakota, if you want to speak about any other common methods.
Yeah, thanks, Trey. We don't need to go into. There are, a whole host of other traffic calming tools that can be used, from, a continuum of roundabouts, which costs, $5 million plus, oftentimes, all the way down to things that are more like signing, striping. There are some cool devices on the market now that are a little bit more like dynamic signs that can be activated by sensors or detection in the road, and things like that can maybe get drivers' attention a little bit better. There's a whole bunch of options depending on the scope of the work that the town might want to do and the exact situation. But definitely it is a situation we run across a lot, especially as it was discussed. Maine DOT has jurisdiction to set speed limits on all public roadways in Maine, but we don't own and operate and maintain all public roads. We have state roads and there's town roads and state aid roads and private roads. So there is definitely a cooperative relationship oftentimes between our agency and the local agency to try to address that, as we kind of have some shared jurisdiction.
That reminded me, one of the things that was most recently approved in the recently passed budget was I had requested a bunch of speed feedback signs. You might have noticed them in other towns. They have the speed limit, then you're going this fast, flashes at you if you're going too fast. If you're going really fast, it just says slow down. It won't give you the high score. So I requested some funding to install those, work with the police department. The police department's already told me a few locations that they would really like to see them. Those locations haven't been determined yet. I know Muir Point Road was one of the ones that I've been asked about, so I have no firm updates on where they're going, but it is something the town is purchasing a bunch more of these signs, and these would be permanent signs. They wouldn't be the trailer like the police have that they strategically move around.
Does everybody understand what those are? We have two in town. One's on Harpswell Road inbound by Garrison, right before you come into by the Lighthouse Deli, and then the other one is on McKean Street inbound, just past Baraboo.
Okay. Next up.
I'm Robert Rand, 65 Mere Point Road, and like our neighbors at 91, we often turn left to go down to Hemlock and then walk in the Meadowbrook area because it feels safer. The Mere Point Road is, I can't really say it other than it's dangerous to walk on that road. I've been almost struck several times. The worst was at the end of December. Consolidated Communication truck came around, and they were in fully all the way in the area marked for pedestrian, and they might have missed me by 2 or 3 feet. The driver clearly was not paying attention. They were going quite fast, and it was a big, heavy truck, so he's got momentum or inertia to get it around that corner. I'm still I'm still trying to resolve that with Consolidated Communications. We've had a lot of phone tag. I've written a letter to them. I'm trying to figure out how we can get them to be a little more attentive on that road because they're on there all the time. The worst level of danger, I think, is that there are large trucks, there are construction vehicles, big trucks, even 18-wheelers, and they are booking it on that road. They are going very fast. Back in May and June of last year, I got a radar sensor because I was so worried about the traffic, and I recorded about a week of data from my mailbox. This thing, it's a really easy thing to use. I have a little background in data, and I did a report and gave it to the town. I brought copies. I'll hand them out to you.
Robert, can I ask a question while you're walking back?
Yep.
Because you live right there.
Yep.
Is it your experience that is it inbound traffic that's coming in the fastest, more consistently, or is it outbound?
Yeah, I think when you look at the data, you see the inbound is a little bit faster.
The inbound.
It varies. We get cars going 60, 70 miles an hour on that, along through that area. There's one guy with, I think it's a purple sports car. Pretty much every day, he's coming through at about 65 to 70 miles an hour.
I use the word inbound as coming from the outer reaches of town to the downtown area.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
So northerly traveling.
Yep.
We've had a good chance to observe pedestrians and being pedestrians ourselves. There are pelotons and groups of bikes that use that road a lot. We've got Bowdoin students running along that road, sometimes in ones and twos, sometimes in whole groups. It's a very large amount of pedestrian and bike traffic on the road. And the width allocated for the road right now for pedestrian and bike traffic it's really not 3 feet in most locations. It's closer to maybe 2 feet or so in a lot of the road. If the lane is currently 11 feet and was narrowed to 10, then that would provide another foot for the pedestrian and bike traffic, which would definitely help improve the safety on that section of the corridor that you're looking at. Before I go on further, I want to try to keep this short, but I want to thank you all for looking at this. It's really, really a big safety issue. The thoughts that have come to mind is because there's 25 miles an hour on Main Street, it would really be nice to have that 25 extended all the way down through Mere Point Road and through Middle Bay, the extent of Middle Bay Road to make that a 25 mile an hour corridor. Because of the amount of residential use, there are a lot of children. In the summer, I regularly see, last summer, there was a mother with a baby carriage on Middle Bay Road, and what she would have to do is kind of go off into the grass every time a car came by, and then go back onto the road a little bit, and then go off into the grass again. So it's really not a safe area for cars going at the speed they're going on the road. One little comment about the 85 percentile. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I am a driver, and I've been a driver for a while. And most drivers I know will try to go 10 miles an hour over the speed limit because they know if they go 11, they might get a ticket. But at 10 miles an hour, they're probably okay. It's very clearly too fast on Mere Point Road because they routinely do not make it around that corner at Hemlock. They're going wide. That 40, speed limit is 30 on that section of road. Cars going 40 is too fast for that section of road. If the state would consider dropping that to 25, cars who will normally try to go 10 over at 35 probably have a better chance of making it through that corner safely. So I'm also in favor of a roundabout where Main Street splits to McQuaid. I think that would solve a lot of traffic issues there. So that's all I have. Thanks very much.
Yeah. I would just comment that Mr. Rand's comment about how fast they go and into the curve, you can tell because you can see where the paint stripe line has been worn off because that's where the cars drive.
I had one suggestion about striping. If there's a concern about cutting away the existing stripe, one thought I had, and it may not be possible, but if it is possible, can you just paint over the old white line on the border instead of cutting it away and damaging the pavement? So.
Yeah, I'd say we've tried that in locations, not necessarily with fog lines, but and restriping for parking stalls and such. Our experience has been that the painting over it doesn't last. We end up scraping it up with our wintertime activity in terms of plowing. I do have notes here in terms of looking at ways to with new technology, trying to figure out a way to, if you're going to mill it off, to just do a shallow mill so that you don't end up with that shadow or that, or a little trough that a bike wheel gets caught in, or something that's going to hold water. So that's yeah, we're looking at.
Great. Thank you all so much for looking at this. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jesse Martin. I live on Middle Bay Road. And I was thinking, if you're going to shim for retiring, if you could shim the shoulder for the walkers and dog walkers and such, that would give people a little more room. You know, feel free to take a couple feet out of my yard. I'm fine with that. All right, that's it.
Peter Simmons. I live in town, not along this corridor, but I use it all the time. I ride my bike up that way at least several times a week. In the summer, probably daily. First, I think the crosswalk at Meadowbrook is a great idea, and I hope you'll put a flashing light there, because that's 35 miles an hour. It doesn't drop to 25 until after Meadowbrook, and people are typically going 40 to 45 when they hit that section. Second thing, the traffic, the speed feedback mechanism, which is currently on Spring Street, is working great. It's really slowing people down. That's a bit of a speedway there, so thank you for doing that. And if you can find a way to do it on inbound Mere Point Road, that's a great idea too. As I said, I ride my bike out that way. Typically, I do the opposite of what the kids going to school do. I go through Botany Place, I cross at Meadowbrook, and I go through Meadowbrook and a little bit into the Commons and then back out on Tarratine, so I can skip that intersection at McQuaid and Mere Point, because I've nearly been hit there on my bike half a dozen times. That said, from Tarratine out is also terrifying, especially right where Middle Bay Road intersects, the edge significantly shrinks just after there if you're going out, going southbound on Mere Point Road. It goes from like 3 feet wide to maybe a foot wide. If there's a way to improve that, that would be great. And finally, I guess, Middle Bay Road definitely needs to be widened. And there are two reasons. One is for the safety of the pedestrians and bicyclists. And the other is that when you widen a road and you put a bike lane, pedestrian lane, 3 feet wide on either section, the road lasts longer because the vehicles are no longer on the soft part of the road. They're well within the really heavily structured part of the road, and they're not, breaking off the edge and breaking off a little more edge and breaking off a little more edge. And I think, it's going to cost a lot more money. I understand that, and it means we may have to wait another year or two. But in the long run, I think it's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I'll just note that in both the town's 2005 Bike and Ped Plan and in the 2020 Bike and Ped Plan, both those plans called for paving shoulders on Middle Bay Road. So it's been in the plans.
Hi, I'm Kwok Hung. I live on 25 Middle Bay Road. First of all, thank you for all that you've been doing. Clearly, you've been very thoughtful, and there's a lot of things you've been considering. I just want to reiterate the fact that Middle Bay Road, we see a lot of runners, a lot of bikers using that road, and I have a young child, and we love to walk. And every time we try to hold our breath, just walking from that end, try to make it to Middle Bay Road, Mere Point Road, so that way we have a safer area to walk on. So I would hope that we can make this happen sooner rather than later. And I understand all the constraints, but just want to say that. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Matt Foster. I live at 117 Middle Bay Road. Jay, I know you already kind of addressed this with like, you're gonna shim and then mill and fill or whatever, right? But I do worry about the geography of Middle Bay. It lends itself to a racetrack, right? It has a hill and curves, and people enjoy themselves on that road, right? So I do worry a little bit about creating a nice smooth pavement. You're going to end up creating like much faster traffic, and I guess that's my opinion. But like others have said, like I have a young daughter. We have basically the best spot in town in regards to getting to the southern Commons entrance, and even that little stretch, which is maybe like 500 feet, is dicey. Like sometimes it's okay, right? But especially if you have, opposing traffic, the people don't know enough to yield to the obstruction, and you get real tight, and there's no shoulder. Right, so it does get a bit dangerous. And I know you guys have kind of considered budget, but in my own opinion, I'd prefer to just wait and get the wider road and have the potholes, which, I mean, again, you could kind of juggle the dice there with like, well, it pushes, bicycles out, but it also slows traffic down, I guess. You don't want to hit the pothole at full speed. So anyways, that's my take on it. Thank you.
My name is Chris Kerber. I live at 137 Middle Bay Road. I can echo a lot of what my neighbor just said with regard to, I guess, some trepidation that I have with the road being paved. People do speed on it. I'm not going to claim that I'm a saint behind the wheel in certain areas. I've definitely sped in places. But I have a young family. I run on that road. The other thing about Middle Bay Road that is maybe worth a discussion is that during the fall, when the sun's setting, if you're coming from Harpswell Road and when I'm running, the light is going to be right in driver's eyes. So with no shoulder, there's not a lot of space to navigate, especially on those 2 turns down by 123. I know it does get a lot of use with families getting to Pennaville, runners and cyclists, and I hope that, as Matt said, we can think about widening the road and trying to slow traffic down a little bit. Thank you.
Hi, Jan Pearson, 656 Harpswell Road. First of all, thank you very much for all of this. I want to just repeat that it's nice to hear how much thought has been going into this, and I really appreciate all the efforts. I bike a lot around the Pennaville, Pleasant Hill, Middle Bay Road area, and I just want to note here, I'm sure you're all aware of it already, but that is probably the most heavily, or perhaps one of the most heavily used cycling circuits in the town of Brunswick. So anything we can do to improve safety, the whole Pleasant Hill to Mere Point Road to Middle Bay Road, connecting to Harpswell or going around Pennaville and then back out to Rossmore and across, all of that is one circuit that is heavily traveled by cyclists. And as you already know, we have multiple annual events, triathlons and things that use the same circuit. So if we can improve safety on that, that would be great, especially on the Middle Bay Road section. That is the scary part, especially if you're connecting from Pleasant Hill and you have a nice shoulder, and even on the Harpswell Road, you have a nice shoulder at least to the old base entrance. So that would be great. I also want to just talk briefly about the McCoy Mere Point intersection there. That is problematic. Roundabout was mentioned as a possibility. Living on Harpswell Road, just recently that four-way stop has been installed at the Middle Bay intersection, and I just want to applaud that. That has made that for a civilized part of Harpswell Road. It's so people, I have not seen anybody yet misbehave there. Perhaps I need to travel through it more, but I go there through every day multiple times. And so that's great. So if a roundabout is out of the question, perhaps a three-way version of that could happen at that intersection with McCoy and Mere Point, because it works. People stop, you've got the flashing lights, and people wait their turn. So that's what I'd like to say. So thank you very much for all your efforts.
Thank you, Jan. And I know there's some people from Harpswell that don't like that four-way stop sign.
Mark Battle, on Bowker Street. I live in town, but cycle and walk on these roads a great deal. And no one's mentioned roller skiing. I do that too, but that's really scary. But I echo so much of what's been said, but I won't take the time. The thing that hasn't been said that crossed my mind is the stretch of Main Street beyond Warming's Market, as I recall, has no on-street parking. And we've got tons of pavement there, as has been discussed. An ideal way of slowing down traffic on that stretch of road, or one, maybe it's not ideal, but one way you could do it is with a physically separated bike lane. In other words, a bit of low hump parallel to the travel lane. It would make the cycling safer, and it would unquestionably slow the traffic. So I'd like to see that at least on the table or considered. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Henry Hayburn, and I live on Pennaville Road. And first of all, I'll just say thank you so much for convening this gathering and having a conversation. I frequently travel from our house into town, so I go on Pennaville Road, Middle Bay Road, Mere Point Road, and Main Street. And each of those sections has its issues, but Middle Bay Road is by far the most challenging and perilous. And often when I come back, I'll come back from town, I'll come through the Commons Trail, which spits me out on Middle Bay Road about midway. And so that's the Commons Trail is great. There's no traffic, but then you wind up on a road that is pretty tough unless you've got some experience on a more heavily traveled road. So one of the things in our previous meeting, we talked about road widths, and what I'd love to see is, I think Middle Bay Road is a prime example of really an opportunity to put our money where our mouth is and use the 10-foot width to help slow traffic, and also use that what we might gain to provide room for cyclists and pedestrians. And the other thing there's more involved, but we have a rec center that's out on the base now, and I think most people who go to the rec center with children or with end up driving there. In my view, it would be terrific if people who are going to the rec center, younger children and others, could get there by walking or biking. And so and Middle Bay would obviously be an important part and segment of that trip. People have talked about speed limits. I guess the thing that's come through loud and clear here is that the speed is the issue. And it starts on Main Street in town, and it works its way out in all directions. I think we've all seen Main Street where somebody's trying to cross the road, and they're looking around a car to see if the car in the next lane is going to slam into them. And I know people who avoid Brunswick downtown and parts of Brunswick because of the sense of danger, basically. And to wrap up, I served on the town's Bike and Pedestrian Committee for many years way back when. And in 2004, we were recognized, really great, we were recognized by the League of American Cyclists as a bike-friendly community. And we've been at that level ever since. We haven't moved. And I think it's time, and I'm confident we can do it, but I think it's really time to begin thinking, okay, what's next? What do we do to show that we want to move away from this bronze level and go to the next level and the next level and become a community that's more open and more friendly for bike cyclists and pedestrians? I think it has implications not just for the cyclists and pedestrians, but just for the desirability of Brunswick as a place to live. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Seth Bullock. I also live on Middle Bay Road. My wife and 2 kids, elementary school age, we love to bike, hike, use the trails. I don't know if you've heard this or not yet, but Middle Bay is kind of treacherous to get anywhere. So we'd love to see something happen with widening the roads, bike lanes. Also, as a small business owner, I drive a small dump truck and haul a trailer, and just know as I'm driving and navigating on Middle Bay Road, it's very challenging when you come upon a pedestrian or a biker. You have to wait half the road at times to be able to overpass them. So that's been a challenge. And yeah, just appreciate all you guys are doing about looking into this, and would love to see something happen. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex. I am Seth's neighbor. I live pretty much directly across from Pennellville on Middle Bay Road. And I have a young family, another baby on the way, and when we just have to go just a hair to Pennellville, it's like check the road 5 times, make sure the sun's not shining in somebody's eyes. When you have a little baby, they're entertained by cars. So we go out and we watch the cars in the morning. And one thing you notice is how many people are looking at their phones while they're driving. So you can't see because there's sun. They're looking at their phones, and the road is so crappy that everybody's in the middle of the road anyway. So it's pretty dangerous. You also notice how many college kids are having a great time riding their bikes, and you know, like there's a sharp corner in front of our house, and people come around it too quickly, and there's not a lot of time to make either like a slam on the brakes or avoid oncoming traffic to avoid the cyclists. So I think that's a real danger point. You know, I used to ride my bike to school. I'm from Vermont. I used to ride my bike to school, and I don't think that's a realistic possibility from where we live to get to the high school, given the road conditions. So I'd love to see it widened. I don't think anybody's brought up how much this is going to cost. Like how much are we talking about? Like, is it 10%, 5%, like double? Like, I think that should be part of this discussion. And like, if it's not that much more, maybe we hold off for a year and until it makes sense. But like, let's do it right, rather than rush and then like have that like, oh, you know, we're gonna do the shoulder next year, and it's easy to push off when you've already done the main chunk. So. I also think to solve the speeding, like I know we have limited police officers, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of them for hunting chipmunks. But I think like you just got to hang a cop there once in a while, a couple tickets, word starts to spread, don't speed over there, and yeah, that could go a long way. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Can I just say something to that? In terms of the financial question, obviously it's more expensive to widen a road and to be able to have bicycle and pedestrian kind of facility alongside. I will say we're not interested in cutting corners or doing it in, just do the road, but then come back and do a sidewalk or something later. I would just point to Jordan Avenue. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the project that we're going to do there. Come on, thanks. Started out as a road reconstruction project. We're going to replace the culvert, but we're also going to do an 8 to 10 foot multi-use path alongside it for the stretch that we're doing, because the economies of scale makes sense. We're doing the road. It's a very small piece of the pie to be able to do an adjacent 10-foot wide bike and ped path. So I just want to reassure that we definitely look at that. It's we're not trying to waste money. It's always, how can we get the most bang for our buck? And if it makes sense to do that additional work, that when you've already got the equipment mobilized there, and then it's just a question of materials, that's typically a very small portion of the total cost. So.
Hi, I'm Mary Gerber. I live at 124 Middle Bay Road, and we've lived there nearly 50 years, so we have seen quite a bit changes on that road. One change I look forward to every year is when they post the road, and no heavy construction vehicles or heavy, because of the potholes. Do you know what I'm talking about? In April. Yeah. And that cuts down on so much traffic. Is that something that could happen year-round? Not only are they heavy, they're fast, they're so noisy, and isn't there another route that could get them to where they want to go instead of going through a residential neighborhood? That's my comment. Thank you.
I'll speak a little bit to that. It's no, unfortunately, we can't post the roads all year round. I will say that we get enormous pushback just posting some of the roads for 6 weeks a year. Contractors and even homeowners that want to have work done and are trying to fit into tight windows in terms of construction timelines and contractor availability. That's one of the many I'd say municipal aspects where there's two sides of it. we do our best to try to kind of walk that line of trying to be fair to everybody, but at the same time, the reason we post them, of course, is to protect the public infrastructure, the roads, during that time of the year when the roads are particularly soft and there's still frost in the ground and
Well, what
or a little
about
frost in the ground.
tractor-trailer trucks?
Pardon me?
Tractor-trailer trucks? There's like this big food service truck that goes by every day.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're going or
No, but can't you limit some roads to the size of the vehicles that travel on the
we
road?
definitely have weight limits on some roads, but that's more because of the infrastructure on the road itself, that it can't handle it. For instance, the Frank J. Wood Bridge, right? There's a weight limit on that because of its structural integrity. But yeah, we don't. Trying to think. Actually, we do have a weight restriction, and therefore it tends to limit size on Union Street. But it's very atypical that we would do something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Alex Chaikin. I live at 233 Middle Bay Road. So we actually are near the Harpswell Road, so we can see where those trucks are going, and it's Harpswell. It's the deliveries that, I don't know if it's food or what, are multiple times a day going from. They're using that because they don't want to drive all the way up the Harpswell Road and go through all the stoplights downtown to get to the interstate. So I also want to call it, there's kind of like a blind curve between Blue Heron and the Pennellville Road on Middle Bay. So if you're walking on the left, you can't see traffic coming towards you. So and there's a pond there, so you basically have to walk almost in the woods. I know we're talking about widening the road and things like that, but any kind of slow down mitigation or something while you're taking that kind of blind curve to protect, usually we'll cross the street and walk on the wrong side of the road just so we can see traffic coming, because we know no one can see us kind of as we're walking through there. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Liz Pearson. I live at 656 Harpswell Road, and thank you so much for this. It's obviously needed and hugely appreciated by those of us who live in the area. We've lived at our house, which is 0.8 of a mile south of Dyer's Corner, for 45 years. And for about 40 years, I biked the 5 miles to town several times a week. It was no big deal. About 5 years ago, I quit biking to town because it's just not safe. Granted, part of that is the 0.8 of a mile that I have to bike on the Harpswell Road. And I know it's probably not realistic to think that the town's going to put in a bike lane between Dyer's Corner and the rest of Harpswell Road. But frankly, it's also now because of Middle Bay Road. It's just too scary. So it was interesting to hear Henry refer to the fact that Brunswick is a bike-friendly town. And it's great that we have the designation, but honestly, Brunswick doesn't feel like a bike safety town to me. And I think it would be great to be able to get back to feeling like it's a bike safety town. So anything we can do to improve that, thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
I'm Rick Winter. I live on Mere Point Road, 69 Mere Point Road. And I've been there about 10 years. And I've seen traffic increase considerably just in those 10 years. I mean, Jamie's saying 30 years. But so I've been here a fraction of that time. But the worst thing is the trucks that go up and down. I wonder if it'd be possible to put no-through trucks on that road or on the roads that Middle Bay as well. That would cut down on the number of trucks that are barreling down the road. And the other thing is this, I've always felt that the signs that are put up by the town, the 30 miles an hour and so on, they don't really mean anything. They're not big enough. They're not. The town doesn't draw attention to the actual speed limit to me. Plus the traffic calming issues that you're talking about. I think making the lanes narrower would help quite a lot. I'd like to see more police presence on the Mere Point. I don't see them that often because I know that if they really wanted to issue tickets to make money, they could make a lot of money on Mere Point Road. But anyway, the town doesn't get that, I suppose. But anyway, my concern is not just the speed. We walk our dog, but we don't dare. really walk him on Mere Point. We get in our car and we drive over to Hemlock and park in the park over there because I don't want to walk our dog. It's my little tiny dog on because of the speed limit and the trucks and the so on and so forth. So anything you can do to alleviate any of that issue, those problems would be much appreciated. Thank you for your efforts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jeannie Johnson. I live a couple tenths of the mile down Harpswell Road from the four-way stop signs. And by the way, people are cruising through the stop signs when they don't think anybody else is looking. Anyway, it seems like the elephant in the room here is that we have just allowed too much development and traffic to come into this town, and now we got a problem we don't know what to do about. When is it going to stop? We were out at Cook's Corner this morning, and all we could think of to ask is, where are all these cars coming from, and where are they going? I mean, it was like an ant heap out at Cook's Corner. Cars going, hundreds of cars, not just a few. So anyway, I think we have a problem. We've allowed it to happen, and now we don't know how to fix it. And I grew up on Middle Bay Road, by the way. About 65 years ago, there's nobody on Middle Bay Road then, not even a house, well, our house, a couple others. But I had some questions, maybe you could answer. What is the Complete Streets policy?
Would you like
Does anybody?
to address that, Chrissy?
Hi there, Chrissy Adamoth, Economic Community Development Project Manager. Complete Streets policy, it's a thing that most towns and cities have, and it's basically just sort of embodies the community's values around safe streets and talks about what the community should do from the municipal perspective and the development perspective to make sure that the street is complete. And by that, that means there's space for motorists, people who are driving cars, people who are walking, and people who are biking and using other mobility devices. So that's sort of what that complete is. It's really serving all road users.
Where did it originate?
The movement for complete streets? That's
the policy.
I used to know that, but Brunswick's had a complete streets policy for a long time. I think multiple decades. I don't know the original date for Brunswick's first complete streets policy, but I think it's been over 20 years.
Maybe not that long.
Not that long.
Maybe 15.
15 to 20 years, maybe.
Yeah. And just, I would just add to that by council directive, it's being updated right now. There's a process to update that policy.
Was it originally a federal policy, or?
No, I don't know. No.
Okay.
And I'll just add on Jordan Avenue improvements is a good example of the complete street policy. It was add a sidewalk, rebuild the road. It grew into a multimodal path for to comply with the complete street policy to the best way that we could in terms of available right-of-way, trying to minimize impacts on properties, trying to get the best value for our dollar of. In that particular case, a multimodal path was far superior to doing bike lanes and a separate sidewalk in terms of impacts on the road, overall cost, et cetera. So if the direction of the town is to do Middle Bay Road, it might be a multimodal path, it might be bike lanes, we don't really know yet. We'd have to survey, see what kind of space we have to work with, what's there now. Yeah, so that's kind of how that policy affects our road projects outside of maintenance. Maintenance, we're usually pretty limited with how much we can realistically do just based off what's existing there.
I was also looking at these different types of treatments that you use on the roads, the reconstruction and the mill and fill and the shim and overlay. Exactly what is that?
All right, so I'll go for a quick rundown of less intensive treatment to more intensive treatments. You first have a surface overlay, that's just putting a new layer on top. You have a shim and overlay, that's you put a very thin layer, kind of fills in some of the bigger cracks. Then you do a surface layer on top. Mill and fill, that would be you grind off that top layer, then put a new layer on top. Reconstruction, well, there's also reclaim, where you take all that asphalt off, grind it all up, put it into the base, and then there's full depth reconstruction where you box cut down all the way to the original often native soil, put in all the new base material, then the base or new pavement on top. So that's kind of the rundown from least to most intensive. And if you look at the CIP presentation I made last winter, I went into more depth about it and the associated costs with it. But I hope that's enough to answer your question for now.
How do you decide, how do you make the decisions which roads are going to get what treatment?
So we look at the condition of the existing road, what the existing drainage is like, because if you keep adding surface layers on top, you eventually build up the road high and you start messing up the drainage. That's why mill and fills are done on occasion to pull it back down so we're not just building up. Some roads just have structural failure in the underlying base material, so those might be a reclaim or a full depth rebuild. It just really varies from road to road based off, you know, some of these roads are kind of old and maybe they weren't built to modern standards, and we try to do test pits before we rebuild roads to help guide the treatment that we plan. So
I was thinking that as bad as everyone says Middle Bay Road is, and I agree, why? I'm looking at Robinson Avenue, which, as I remember, is just a tiny little side street. Why is that getting prioritized for reconstruction when maybe it would be better to put that whole effort into a really horribly, heavily trafficked road like Middle Bay Road to do a reconstruction there? Save some money by doing it right the first time, because Middle Bay Road, that needs to be completely ripped up and done over again, in my opinion. So how do you prioritize where you're going to spend the money for spending a lot of money on a little street like Robinson Avenue?
That street's in very poor condition, and it was our opinion it needed the full depth treatment, and we try to spread the love around town. So,
but how many cars travel on Robinson Avenue a day or whatever? It's a little tiny street, correct?
Yes.
Then I don't understand why the expensive reconstruction is going to a little side street that hardly anybody drives on. I don't understand the logic.
So maybe, Jeannie, in the interest of time, we might take that one offline as a debate with Trey.
Well, I will just
say,
say,
go through a process, I think.
Well, I think we need to know how our money is being spent and why it's being, a lot of money put into a little tiny street that probably doesn't need it. As opposed to Middle Bay Road, which everyone is saying is dangerously horrible for everything. And we're just going to do a shim and overlay on Middle Bay Road. Well, when the snow plows go down these roads in the wintertime and there's really no snow on the roads, those plows are digging up these roads horribly. And I don't know why money is being wasted when there's no snow on the road to dig up the road that we have to pay for.
Yeah.
Some of this just doesn't seem very cost effective, in my opinion.
Okay.
Anybody like to?
Yeah, I would just, here's my 2 sentences. The length of Robinson and Otis there, they don't get a lot of traffic, but the length means that it's a comparatively speaking, a less expensive project than doing the same treatment on Middle Bay Road. Keep in mind that for the Middle Bay Road, the shim and overlay isn't the final treatment of that road. The final treatment will likely be reclaim and probably widening of Middle Bay Road. The existing condition.
Not reconstruction?
No, we feel that the base is pretty good on Middle Bay Road. It's just the surface that is a problem, which is why
some of Middle Bay Road, I think, is on ledge, correct? As are a lot of roads.
That I don't know. I'd say most of our roads are sitting on sand, which is a problem when they don't have adequate base, and then you have pieces of pavement that break off because there's not enough support underneath.
Yeah.
The current condition of Middle Bay Road is much better than the current condition of Robinson and Otis, which is why we chose that.
Well, yeah, but the traffic volume is not even comparable.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to take prerogative here since we're closing in on 8 o'clock here, Jeannie, to begin to wrap up. If that's okay.
Oh, I'll save my questions for another time.
Yep, there'll be another time, I promise you. Is there anyone else who would like a chance to speak before we close out?
Jan Pearson again. Can I just make one extra comment? You mentioned before getting some of those extra signs that flash the speed.
Yeah.
I just anecdotally want to put one data point out for me. I go down the Harpswell Road one, past that every day. I think those are effective at some significant level. So the more the merrier.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody who would like to? It'll save time walking across the room. Oh, is it working? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Marilyn Westcott, 95 Mere Point Road. We're one house away from the neighbor that just spoke in the beginning. It's a problem of speed and inattention. And we moved here in 2016 before they opened the back road to the base, and now it's just become terrifying. We have many, many people jogging right down in front of our house. We're right across from that little pond, of Scarponi's Pond, and it's somebody's going to get hurt or killed because we've had 3 mailboxes taken out. The last one, the whole thing was uprooted and flown across the lawn, the whole post. They're not paying attention. There's an imperceptible curve. You see a curve, but you don't realize how much it does. Right at Hemlock Road, it's northbound, coming down there. They're not making it. They're crossing right across our driveway and right across our lawn. And if they wake up in time, they just hit the mailbox with their rear view mirror, or if they don't, they take the mailbox out and then they wake up, or they hit her fence, their stumps and their trees. And I don't know, I'm not a big fan of flashing lights or something's got to stop their mind before they get to that curve. And I don't know if it's a low little elevated table or whether there's just something that can kind of flash at them if they're going too fast, wake them up. I don't know how to get their attention because they're not paying attention. And it's not I don't know if there could be a way to either straighten it or to provide a place for those joggers. I don't know if they're from Bowdoin College or whatever, but they go by every day, even on March 24th in the snowstorm. They're out jogging, and they go right down past our house, and I don't know how far down they go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alex, one more?
Yeah, I'll make it quick.
Yeah, I think there's 2 people on Zoom that I've been didn't know were there. So.
So, the shim and fill versus you said that the next step, like it will be reconstructed, not the full, but kind of like the second. So they're going to do the shim and fill, right? But then we also said that that's not the final stage of this project, that there will be like in some point in the future. How far in the future after the shim and fill is that next phase? Just want to know that.
That's a great question. According to my slides, it was 2 question marks. 20-something. It won't be 2026. Earliest would be 2027. Maybe more likely is 2028, just based on the complexity of the engineering. And I will say, and not to throw CMP under the bus, but trying to move utility poles, which would be required as part of a widening, is probably a year process in and of itself.
I have no problem throwing CMP under the bus. But so quickly, like the getting started costs, setting everything up, getting everybody there, shutting the thing down to do this. I guess there's probably some money saved if you combined the two, and maybe there's like a place where we just don't do it now and meet in the middle, and it could be a good budget savings instead of doing it twice. So that's the last thing I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I see two on Zoom. I don't know how to get them. Larry? Jane Champ.
Hi, good evening. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
Perfect. I would echo certainly a lot of what those, oh, by the way, I'm on Jordan Ave. Very frequent bike user on Main Street to Mere Point Road. We use the daycare there and bike to it often when we feel safe. I love the idea that someone previously said about possibly seeing about making that 25 miles an hour. Past that point, it's a very, very scary part there in particular, and I think just to put a finer point on the issue is that at 25 miles an hour, traffic data shows that people will usually survive, pedestrian or cyclist. They'll be injured or severely injured, but they'll live. But when you get to 35 and above, the numbers really flip. And I think it's just important for us to remember what we're talking about here. When people are saying they're scared or they're uncomfortable, you know, they just want to live. So anything we can do to get down to 25, knowing that a physical barrier is not really an option in most places. But if it's enforcement, if it's ticketing, whatever it is, I would just say, let's do it. So just putting a plug in for that, and I'll end my remarks there, just given the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Sherry Clark Nadell.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. So my husband and I own two properties. One is at 187 Mere Point, and the other one's at 4 Blue Heron, which is right near 123. First of all, again, everyone else has said it as well. Thank you for holding this meeting, and special thanks to Jamie Ecker, who's just really been championing this issue. Many people have said it. We also sort of feel like in order to take a safe walk from either of our properties, we feel like we need to get in the car and drive or walk from Middle Bay Road or Mere Point because the traffic is speeding past us, to either go to Pennellville Road or to go to a neighborhood off of Mere Point Road. So these are my specific observations. When I drive to our house on Mere Point from either direction, we follow the speed limit as best we can. Sometimes I space out and go a little over, and then I quickly go back to 30 miles an hour. The person behind me is always on my bumper, always, without fail. People just do not follow the speed limit. And I sit in our house, and people are whizzing by, starting at 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm now retired, so I see them until it gets dark. So I guess I understand that Mere Point and Middle Bay are, it's a cut-through road. We've all talked about that. But and I get it that it's a DOT that sets the speed limit. I guess maybe what we need to talk about is, or think about, is how do we then help people follow the speed limit? My personal opinion is that the speed limit, whatever trailer thing that are wonderful. I love our police department. Sets up, doesn't work. People go, oh yeah, I'm speeding, and they go right by it. It doesn't work. Speeding tickets work, and you are welcome to use my driveway at 187 Merepoint Road anytime you would like, and you'll be able to hand out a lot of tickets. So again, people have mentioned it. Dump trucks, not Seth, I'm sure, not Seth, but the dump trucks, the septic trucks, the tractor trailers, the cars, the motorcycles, it's constant. It's just constant. Mr. Rand, I'm sure handed out his study to you, and God bless him for taking the time to do that. While that's going on, families, I watch them trying to get their, they have to go to bus stops, and they're attempting to get their children down this busy commute-filled road. And I just sit there watching them going, okay, they've got their little carts and their wagons, and they're walking the dog. This is 9 months out of the year. They're trying to do this on Merepoint Road. And that's along with people walking their dogs daily, jogging, et cetera, et cetera. People have talked about it. I'll move on. So I don't think it's the speed limit that's the issue. I think it's enforcing it. And do I think that our police officers should be sitting handing out tickets, and that that's the best use of their time? Not really, but I don't know what else to do. I guess my other suggestion would be this. I think the speed tables would be a great idea, and try to place them as best we can where they're not making noise. The other idea that I had would be solar-powered blinking lights around the miles per hour signs, to really just try to, alert people that, hey, this really is a 30 mile an hour or a 25 mile an hour area. Let's see. I think that's it. I don't know. I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much, you guys, for doing all this.
All right.
I'll be quiet.
All right.
We can all go home.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah.
So unless either the counselors up here have any further comments, I could try to summarize some of what we heard. That's a good idea. I can try, so you may have to add to this. I have a couple big takeaways just on what we've heard and some of the facts that were presented. If I read it right, doing math, it's a 60% increase in traffic on Merepoint Road in those 12 years. And that's just up to 2022. That's a huge increase in traffic on that road. I think everyone would agree Middle Bay Road is treacherous and needs to be repaired, but it's challenging to think of how to go about that in a timely manner to make it safe for all the users. There's also just chronic, and it doesn't take a brain scientist to figure out, chronic speeding issues throughout the area, in the town, period. It's distracted driving, speeding. The police can't be everywhere. Sometimes I wonder where they may be, but they're not on this stretch all the time, and they can't be. And it's going to take just a combination of tools to calm traffic. It's not going to be any one thing. It's not going to be just changing the speed limits. It's not just going to be building a shoulder. We've got to look at a combination of tools. And until someone convinces me otherwise, I think some of these tools are not that expensive. Moving a stripe, changing how we stripe roads, things like that. There may be a cost. There's a cost to everything. But if we put the right combination of tools together, I think we can make things a lot safer than they are today. And I think we ought to use some common sense too. I was a little alarmed by a comment made by either Trey or Jay that what speed study we just did may not justify changing the speed limit on Middle Bay Road. And that's a hard one to understand. I hope we're looking at this in the context of the users of the road, the people that live there, and not just the old 85 percentile rule, because that road, even if it's fixed at 35, is pretty fast if you're walking or biking on that road. So common sense, I think, is part of what we need to enter into this. Jay, if I understood you earlier, most of these improvements for various reasons aren't going to happen this year, except maybe Middle Bay Road, if I understood that right, for the kind of a first phase potentially.
Yes. I just had to make sure that of all the various balls in the air right now, is that, as soon as we're 100% sure that Middle Bay Road can handle a reclaim as opposed to needing a rebuilding it, then it would probably make sense to shim and overlay it this year, holds it together. The material on top gets folded into the reclaimed, the new reclaimed base, and that could happen this year. The shim and overlay, yes.
Okay. So I was going to kind of end this with at least some thoughts on, combination of thoughts from what I heard and some of my own ideas on what might get done this year for consideration by the town. So I think what is possible to get done this year or in the near term. Addressing the speed limits. Everyone knows just changing the speed limits isn't going to do it's not a panacea, but why not? And can we get going on changing the speed limits in these problematic places? Narrowing the striped travelway lane on Main Street. Narrow the travelway lane on Mere Point Road to 10 feet. Put that white stripe 10-foot travelway on Middle Bay if it gets done this year, even though it won't mean much. It'll still slow traffic down. Consider dynamic feedback speed signs. I don't know if there's any in the budget that could put on any of these roads, but consensus seems to be the police trailer that's there seems to make a difference when it's there, but it's going to go away. So consider that. And one I'll add to the mix is that wasn't mentioned. It would be great if there was a white stop bar at the end of Middle Bay Road. As you come on to Mere Point, there's nothing there. You can just drive right through it. You don't even know there's a stop bar if the sign's kind of to the side. So those are like simple things we might be able to get done this year. And there may be others. Within the next couple years, with these major other road projects, primarily the Main Street project, we know some of the things you talked about, the crosswalk and sidewalk at Meadowbrook. There was some talk about consideration of a rotary or three-way stop at McCoy. I know one is much more expensive than the other, but can we enter that into the mix? Certainly slowing traffic down there so it doesn't slingshot around the corner could be a huge help to many residents. Consider one of those RFB beacons at that crosswalk at Mere Point, McCoy, and Main Street, because there's nothing there except a faded crosswalk. We talked about Middle Bay Road, widening the shoulder there. Speed tables, I would like to learn a lot more about them because we see lots of communities putting these in. My understanding, there's a whole engineering science around these. Somehow snowplows and emergency vehicles adapt to them. So I'd like to learn more about that. That's not something that we have to put in the plans exactly, but let's give it due consideration. And then the reconfiguration of the intersection of Pleasant Hill Road and Main Street. We got some letters about this. I think everyone agrees it's between just the incredibly wide width of the road there and challenges there. Some reconfiguration and striping or something needs to be considered there. Bike lanes on Main Street, and then and then consider reducing the overall width of the pavement on Main Street down that section. There's a lot more road than we can ever use long-term. It may save us money not to have to maintain so much pavement, but that could also be in the mix. So that's a list that's in print, and I'd be glad to send it to you. So I'm not sure if anyone else has anything else tonight. I don't think this is the last of these meetings, because these projects are going to stretch out over the next couple of years. But hopefully they will result in something that makes those roads safer for all users. And I think that's everyone's goal. So if people didn't put their name on the list, it'd be great to put them on there. And so we have a way to reach out to you with future meetings. And thank you for coming.